So, of course, a very good afternoon to you, and welcome to today's edition of The Hot Seat. My name is Stan Gouveia, and of course, it's Wednesday, and it's the 26th day in the month of February, and we are ready to rock and roll. We invite you to tune in on our Facebook page. You can also tune in, for those of you who might be home or in the offices, on HJTV and wherever you are, and catch today's program. And the hot seat today is none other than from the People's Progressive Party Civic, the former Attorney General, and his name, of course, certainly no stranger to any one of us. There he is. A very good afternoon to you, sir.
Stan, and good afternoon to all your listeners and of course your viewers and followers on Facebook. It's a pleasure to be in your company and in these studios once again.
Yes, so let's get right into it, Mr. Nandlall. We're heading down into what is known as crunch time. The last few days before the population goes out and march to vote. And what is your message as to why your party should be re-elected?
Well, our message by now, Stan, as you have correctly pointed out, we are at the tail end of our campaign, and our message has been well disseminated right across the length and breadth of this country, and you would have seen, as your viewers and listeners would have seen, the mammoth support that we have generated right across the length and breadth of this country. Wherever we go, people are assembling and converging in tremendously large numbers to hear our message, to receive us warmly, and to express their support for our party. The reason being that they would have read our manifesto, importantly, and they would have been familiarized with our track record in government, our accomplishments in government, the fact that we deliver on promises made, the fact that we have transformed this country from a bankrupt economy, a basket case from 1992, to a national viable economy today, to at least 2015, and the fact that we transformed this country in every conceivable sector from 1992 to 2015 are facts that are well known to the Guyanese electorate, and fortunately, Stan, they have had the opportunity of living under an APNU AFC administration from 2015 to now, and they have witnessed the decline in our economy, the decline in our social sectors, the decline in our productive sectors, the catastrophe that surrounds our newfound wealth in the oil and gas sector, their dismal performance in delivering their manifesto promises, and most importantly, the violations that they have committed against the Constitution, the attempts they have made to destabilize our democracy, the trampling upon the rule of law, and the so many excesses of abuse of power to which I'll refer to as the program goes on. These are things that the Guyanese people have endured. It's fresh in their minds, and since 2015, they have been consistently expressing their rejection of this administration. They did so at the 2016 local government elections. They did so resoundingly at the 2018 local government elections. The National Assembly, another important forum of our democracy, expressed its displeasure and rejection of this government in the form of a no-confidence vote on the 21st of December 2018. And it has gotten even worse since. So, and that's reflected today on the ground in the political environment of our country. And that's why I began by saying that the response that we have received has been electrifying. Our support base is invigorated, and we have been able to attract into our folds, for the first time since our beginning as a political party, huge number of persons who did not traditionally support us. So, Stan, I will conclude on this aspect, by saying that we are poised to take government just after the results are announced.
Let me just ask you Mr. Nandlall. Now, you did mention yeah, the defeat that you put on other parties in the local government elections. And I've asked some of your other colleagues who've been here, not been able to have a clear answer, so I'm certainly hoping I can get a clear answer from you. To what right would you say that you subscribe to in being in government and for 19 years plus not actually holding local government elections, which were actually returned after 2015 by this administration?
Stan, I'm very, very happy that you have asked me that question, because that's an area that needs explanation, and there is a lot of fabrication and a lot of wrong information that has been disseminated out there, which I hope to put into proper perspective. First of all, we won government in 1992, and in 1994 we had local government elections. You would recall that. Then we had to go to the 1997 elections. The 1997 elections, as you know, the results were not accepted. But 1997 general and regional elections, the results were not accepted by the PNC. They caused mayhem, they burnt, they caused social disorder in our country. As a result, we had a CARICOM intervention, we had an Hermanston Accord evolving, and in that accord, the parties sat together along with their supervisors from the CARICOM community, and we arrived at a menu of measures that would reform the electoral system and would bring constitutional reform, because that was what the parties at the time were advocating, in particular the PNC. We moved from 1997, a task force was established between the two parties and by the two parties, comprising of players from both sides, with the mandate to look at the local government architecture, look at the constitutional architecture, and to make reforms to facilitate and accommodate local government elections and national elections as well in the future. That task force met, and they continue to meet, and unfortunately for years they were unable to complete the task given to them. Now, 2001 elections came, we had massive constitutional reforms. So it was thought then that the local government reforms should be put on a back burner to facilitate constitutional reforms for the purpose of national and regional elections. And we reform our whole, the whole electoral process. We put, for example, the Carter formula in the Constitution. We did a massive set of reforms in terms of reducing the powers of the presidency, reducing the powers of the executive, and conferring a host of powers on the parliament with a view of disseminating power from the center of the executive into peripheral organs, including the opposition, because they played a major role in the powers that were being devolved away. It was devolved onto Parliament and into organs that the opposition had control. For example, the standing committees in the Parliament, they have equal participation. The Rights Commission that were established, it had to have been staffed by commissioners that would have been appointed or elected through a process that the opposition played an integral part. So those were the reforms that occupied national attention and energy at the time, and that caused the local government reforms to be put on the back burner. After the 2001 elections came and went, the local government task force continued its job. It reached a stage in 2006 where we could have had local government elections, and I remember distinctly it was a request made by Mr. Corbyn as leader of the opposition that we should go ahead with national elections rather than local government elections in 2006, because by that time we had accomplished a fair amount of reforms, and it was felt consensually that we were prepared legally, constitutionally, to go to local government elections. But the PNC requested that we proceed with national
So
elections.
you adhere to what the request of the PNC?
Right, that's correct. Now, I am not finished. Just allow me to complete the whole process till I reach to where I want to go. It was only in 2011 when they won when they won more seats in the parliament that they sought to change this mantra and started to blame the PNC, the PPP for not holding local government elections. If you check the Hansard, you will see, because the law requires that every time you postpone local government elections, annually you are required to move a motion in the parliament, or rather you are required to amend the Local Government Act that requires elections to be held. And if you check their Hansard records, Stan, you will see annually that amendment being proposed. And in particular, I remember, at least for the years that I was there, Basil Williams, on behalf of the PNC, standing up and speaking on behalf of the opposition, the PNC in particular, agreeing to the postponement of the elections by virtue of lending support to that amendment. It is in 2011, when they controlled the parliament, that they started to change and bring this propagandistic argument blaming the PPP for failure to hold local government election. It is a myth, it's a fallacy, and I want to reject it now, and I can bring the record to substantiate everything that I have said.
Quickly, because it sounds as if it's just party rhetoric also, but explain to the public then how it is all of a sudden after post 2015 then they had the consensus to be able to have local government elections.
Because, Stan, we agree by 2015, from 2011 to 2015, we completed the enactment of all the laws requisite, and we were in the minority. We couldn't, we passed them, but we passed them with the support of the majority of the opposition, because they held a one-seat majority. But we tabled them in the parliament. I was Attorney General. They were drafted in the AG office. And those were the last set of cumulative reforms that made it possible for local government elections to be held. It is only then, for example, that the Local Government Commission was established. And we had to deal with things like financial transfers, and a number of other things. That when they got, and I'm going to deal with another issue, but I just want to conclude on this, that it was in between 2011 to 2015, in that parliament, the 11th parliament, I think, or the 10th parliament of Guyana, 10th parliament of Guyana, that the reforms were completed, and they happened to be in the government, and the elections were held. So, Stan, it is not right. If you're going to blame the PPP, if there is any blame, it must be apportioned equally, because the record will show that there was joint applications annually in the National Assembly for the postponement of local government elections. And if you read the reasons, you will see both parties explaining the status quo of the work that they were doing jointly together, and indicating a lack of preparedness to go ahead with those elections because the work was incomplete to complete the reforms that was thought necessary to bring those elections off. Now,
turning our attention now to another matter. That is obviously in 2015, your party lost the seat of government. Given in your opening statement, you would have indicated that there were so many of the good things in terms of giving a good life to Guyanese that your party was able to give. Why do you believe your party would have lost the seat of government?
Our party lost essentially because, first of all, we were a long time in government. We spent 23 uninterrupted years in government. And significantly, and I believe the most important issue, was the propaganda that were peddled against us, and the fact that the propaganda succeeded. The propaganda succeeded. First of all, the allegations of wrongdoing against us were magnified and multiplied to gigantic proportions, out of sync with reality. Worse happening now, and you're not seeing that in the way that it used to have been presented in the newspapers, in the television, and in certain parts of the press. And then you had this grouping of persons who presented themselves as the epitome of purity and accountable and transparent, and they were able to fool people. That's the truth. And then when the people got a taste of the medicine, you know, there's a saying, the thing lies in the pudding. When they realized that they were duped, they were fooled, the Guyanese people realized that the corrupt-free government that they were promised, it was in fact more corruption. All the promises, the sugar workers were promised a whole host of things. Sugar is too big to fail, 25% increase, no closure of estates. The opposite happened. The rice farmers were promised a special fund to help rice farmers. New markets were promised to them. $9,000 a bag for paddy. Nothing was delivered. The opposite was delivered. The rice industry is crippling. Our UG students, for example, Mr.
So
Granger,
the new markets for rice are not accurate?
are not found. Are not found. Up to now, there has not been a more viable market that we had in place with Venezuela. Up to now. And that is why 40% of the farmers are off the land. Not only because there is no market, but because of the adverse policies that are crippling the industry. VAT on rice marketing products, VAT on fertilizer, VAT on agriculture equipment, the increase of rental fees at MMA from 1,000 to 7,000, increase in drainage and irrigation charges from 2,000 to 8,000, hounding the rice farmers off the land. I am representing 50 of them in court right now that the MMA have them in court. The revocation, unconstitutional revocation of rice farmers' leases. And that's only rice farmers. Let me move to the timber industry. The two largest player that we had in the forestry sector, Bai Shanling, was chased out within months of this government winning power, putting hundreds of small loggers out of jobs, out of a market.
But you would agree, you would agree that Bai Shanling, when they were here, they would have signed a contract with certain understandings. One of those was to be able to then process and have the factories here, and it was not happening for a number of years.
Yes, that is true.
Right? So they were not living up to their
that's
part
correct.
of
But
the contract.
But we needed, listen, our people needed Bai Shanling more. Because I have spoken personally, Stan, to hundreds of small loggers in Aichuni, Kokwani, in Linden, Region 10, who took loans from iPad, from the bank. They took chainsaw on credit from Coates and Farfan and Mendes. They bought machinery on credit from Jumbo Jet and many people in Georgetown because they felt that they had contracts with Bai Shanling to supply logs to them. Logs from them, and when Bai Shanling was just chased out of the country unceremoniously, all those people left with their millions of dollars of liability and no market up to now. Then came Barama a few years after. Barama packed up and left. So you have no major operator in the forestry sector now, and you have tens of thousands of lumber concession holders that are doing nothing. right?
How does that work in tandem with your promise to be able to have a sustainable rainforest? If it is that we are going that way of major, not agricultural, but major forest deforestation. How does that work?
Barama and all the operators who are operating here were all operating in that environmental code that we promulgated. You would recall that not a single, we have Ayokrama here, we have mentalists visiting here. Not one serious allegation has been made about our management of our forestry sector. Not one while we were in government. But you can juxtapose that to the flaring, the continuous 24-hour flaring of gas out there, natural gas, that's killing the environment. And yet this government promises a green state, and they have a green state policy. So we can deal with that, but the point I want to make is that we have not had any major violation. In fact, our LCDS and our conservationist policies, low carbon development strategy, was recognized universally. Bharat Jagdev was appointed or regarded as given a title by the United Nations because of our position on the sector. And
which was that
champion of the earth.
Wouldn't you find that ludicrous that at that time when he was given that title, we were known as the garbage city, the Georgetown?
No, that's foolishness.
No.
We are talking about major. We are talking about how to deal with the garbage city.
It is not foolishness
deal with the garbage city.
And we would have had a minister who would have said he wished that there was actually a health outbreak.
Are you telling me that United Nations? Well, I'm answering you. Are you saying that United Nations was wrong? Are you saying that Norway, that has given us millions and millions of US dollars as a reward for our prudent management of our forestry sector, that those people are ignorant? You can't trivialize our prudent management of the sector as a whole by identifying Georgetown.
What is interesting, Mr. Nandlall, is that I find that oftentimes once something is favorable, it is accepted, and when it is not, it is actually.
But the question stands.
We would have had many issues about it.
But
once because many, for example, like on the same issue, like just as an aside, you had the OAS that put out the Department of State Overseas Security Advisory Council in 2010 would have said that Guyana, and I quote, 18.4% of every 100,000 persons regarding us as the fourth highest murder rate in South America, behind Venezuela, Colombia, and Brazil. Right? And I'm sure it's something you will seek to debunk.
No, I will not debunk that if that's the official statistic, but I could give you the Caribbean statistics, and I can tell you what the position is now. It has not improved. If that was the position then, it has not improved now. It has gotten worse now. But who was in control? You chose Georgetown. Who was in control of the government and management of the city of Georgetown from 1992? The PNC, APNU, GGG, all are the same. So you can't put that at the foot of the People's Progressive Party. They have won convincingly.
Your president.
They have won. Yeah, but we have democracy.
Your president at that time would have been the one who many
Bharat
times would have
was the president, but Bharat Jagdev, unfortunately for us, can't go in and direct the city council, because the law says that the city council is to be managed by the councillors elected by the people of Georgetown. And the councillors elected and the mayor elected by those councillors were people from the PNC, GGG, APNU, AFC, and that is the position now. So I will say that the PPP will not hold political responsibility and electoral responsibility for Georgetown being a garbage city. Those who were elected and those who had the lawful mandate to take charge of the city must accept that responsibility. And that is what democracy is about, Stan.
Let's turn our attention right now to a couple of other matters. In a few times, I got three important questions here
please.
for you. One caller who is, not caller, viewer on our live is asking is, Mr. Nandlall, do you believe that you would have made a better candidate for the PPP Civic going into these elections?
Now that caller doesn't have my interest at heart, Stan. That
What
caller
is
doesn't
your
have my
interest?
party's interest at heart. That caller knows my position. And that caller knows that that ship has sailed. Irfan Ali is our candidate, and I and the PPP and the PPP entire apparatus and the PPP entire constituency is standing strong behind Irfan Ali. Whether I would have been a candidate or not is a matter for an academic discourse, and it's not relevant at that point in time. And that person, I am too smart to fall for that kind of question.
Next question is, do you regret the call that you would have allegedly placed the Kaito News reporter during the time that you were Attorney General?
Look, Stan, I've explained that thing over and over. I sat down the other night with Gildari for over an hour. Mm-hmm. I made a call to Gildari. It was a Sunday afternoon. I was gaffing with Gildari. I was not addressing the nation. It was not a public speech. And I was reciting,
but
yes.
The call, do you regret it? No. Do you regret it or not?
I regret it because it was made public. Because I was simply chatting with somebody. The people taped their Gildari, made my conversation public. People eavesdrop into a private conversation, and I become the victim. They were not supposed to hear that. I was not speaking in an official capacity. I was a human being, a Guyanese man talking to a Guyanese man about a private issue. I was not giving an interview. I was not speaking officially. I was not talking about matters of national interest. I was speaking about a personal problem that I had, that Kaito News was hounding me about. Something that was private and personal, and I spoke to Gildari in that capacity, and my privacy was breached, my trust was breached, and it became unfortunately public, and I am being condemned. You peep into my bedroom, you see what you're not supposed to see, and you offended? You're not supposed to. You have violated my privacy.
No, but
you have violated my freedom.
You made the call, so it is understood,
right,
obviously, how smartphones are or what's not.
No, but it was never in. No, if I say that, if I say that now, and that's a different matter. But that again thing is water under the bridge. We got to talk about electoral issues.
No, it's all part of the electoral issues, and going forward, because you would have had just over the weekend, some of the public discourses, public town halls, and so on. And one of the questions that came from the people there who didn't get a chance to ask, they're saying is, why is it that so many men within the PPP expressed blatant disrespect for women, and how it is that you're going to convince them to see you as more than a mere sexual toy to be used?
My work in law, in human rights, in the parliament, in the political struggle, knows no gender. I advocate for human rights. I struggle for human rights. I struggle for democratic rights. And my struggle transcends gender. And I have stood up for the cause of women. I have stood up for the cause of children. I have stood up for the cause of men. Wherever injustice presents itself, I am there, and I try to do my best. When this government was taking away core homes from single mothers, I was the attorney at law that went to court free of cost and won all the cases. Not the women rights champions who are out there on the streets. It's Anil Nandlall who went. I found those people. I had to go and look for them. I went into various communities. Some of them were sent to me from Freedom House. And I, at my own cost, own expenses, expended my own energy, took this government on and won all those cases. And today those single mothers got back their transport, got back their titles. That is what Anil Nandlall do. The rice farmers of Borbis, many of them are women. When this government took away their title, took away their leases, I went to court and I won it back. That is what Anil Nandlall did for the women of this country. And that is why wherever we go in the PPP, don't bother with the propaganda, women, man, child, old, young, they embrace us. because they know our record of struggle. We don't struggle for women alone. We don't struggle for children alone. We struggle for every human being.
Mr. Nandlall, penultimate today, I just want to ask, I do recall, and I'm sure you would have recalled in 2011, as he was about to demit office, he would have indicated at his final press conference that he was going to go off perhaps into a farm and relax as an elder statesman. That was the then president, Mr. Bara Jagdeo. He is actively and squarely involved in the politics of today, and many are of the opinion that it has sidelined persons of your ilk and many others who are up and coming. How would you respond to that?
Mr. Jagdeo is free as a human being to make decisions and to change those decisions. Mr. Jagdeo as a human being must face the consequences of his change of decisions. He has made a decision and he has changed a decision. And look at the consequences. The people of Guyana seem to, at least a majority of them, embrace that change. And today, Jagdeo at the helm, as General Secretary of the People's Progressive Party, is on the cusp of taking the People's Progressive Party to victory. So who am I, one single person, to express a view that is contrary to the mammoth support that Jagdeo has been able to galvanize in this country over the past decade or so that he has re-entered, if you want to use that word, public life. You understand, some people may have tried and they have failed. Jagdeo was able to succeed. And I have worked along with him, and I have benefited from his political wisdom, from his political experience, and I can say that I am proud to be part of that team led by Jagdeo.
As a brilliant mind, and in all circles we hear this, that is you, sir, a brilliant legal mind, and obviously one who is well studied in your field. One of the things that has happened is that your presidential candidate is facing 19 fraud charges. Realistically, should there be another party that would have had a candidate facing the same kind of circumstances, do you see them as eligible to be elected?
Now, Stan, if Irfan Ali was facing 19 charges of child molestation, of murder, of stealing from a bank, then I would have taken a completely different view. Irfan Ali is facing 19 criminal charges that are in law no charges at all. He is facing politically inspired and engineered charges. I myself, with all the brilliant mind that you accord to me, which I accept and I thank you for, I myself am the victim of a trumped up charge for 2 law books. Basil Williams has squandered through his incompetence billions and billions of dollars as Attorney General. He should get definitely life imprisonment if you're going to go by that measure. And you have basis to charge. 2 law books they have charged before. $2,000 in books. Basil Williams squandered $1 million in legal fees.
Yeah, but
just now.
We're talking about...
I'm coming back.
Okay.
For the CCJ leg of the no confidence motion case to argue foolishness. But let's get back to Irfan. These charges are charges that were trumped up and instituted because he's Irfan Ali, because of politics, not because he did anything wrong. Look, just the other day, they sold a plot of land to this hotel, AIC Hotel or something like that, for $50 million. Ashni Singh and Winston Brassington, after a public tender, they did not go to a public tender. They signed an agreement in some back room, giving, after we got oil, next to an airport, after we got oil, and after they know that ExxonMobil is building a headquarters there, they sell 2.5 acres of land for $50 million. Ashley Singh and Brassington sell 2 acres of land at Movitong after a public bid for 400,000 US dollars, I think. I can't remember. But far more after a public bid. 10 years ago, when we didn't have oil, we didn't have ExxonMobil, and these people are not in jail, they are not before the courts. What did Irfan Ali do? Distribute house lots at Pradoville?
But you have to agree, because the court still upholds that he has to go to trial for that. You have an issue for example,
hold on.
Canada has revoked his...
The matter is still in the court.
This is what I'm saying.
The matter
right?
is... the challenge against the charge is still in the court. Right?
But the charge is still there until either way it is decided.
If
and I'm asking about the best for the people, the best for your party, in terms of being able to put out a candidate. I'm just asking you.
I am not going to condemn a colleague of mine because he's the victim of political inspired charges. And that is what we all are. Dharam Kumar Siraj, Nigel Dharamlal, all of us who were charged. Not one of us did something. It's not that we never did anything wrong, but they didn't charge us for real wrong things. Shalimar Ali Haq, the director of public prosecutions, is a beneficiary of the house lot from Irfan Ali. Gary Best, who killed somebody and up to now has not been charged, and is somewhere overseas allegedly recovering, is not charged. Irfan Ali, give him a house lot and Irfan Ali get charged. And you want me to sit here and condemn Irfan Ali? I will not do that. It's completely wrong. Ashley Singh and all the charges once we win, we are going to quash every single one of them, because that's all they are worth, being quashed and thrown in the dustbin.
You'll quash them.
Yes. The relevant authorities will have to do that.
All right.
Because if they were acting independently in the first place, those charges should never have been instituted. Basil Williams instructed Soku to charge me. I know that. I have the evidence.
My final question to you, Mr. Nandlall, is what kind of message are you sending to the electorate as to being re-elected into office come March 2?
What kind of message I'm sending to them?
Yes. What is your message to them?
Oh, that's simple. Easy. My message to all who are listening to me, PPP supporters, non-PPP supporters, Guyanese of every walk of life, the PPP is the best available option. The PPP is the party with a program, a well-studied program, a program of promises that we can deliver. We have consulted, we have not acted unilaterally in the compilation of these promises, and we have a source of revenue to fund these promises. These are not sky in the pie promises, these are real promises, and they constitute a continuation of our developmental program, a developmental program that started by Cherry Jagan in 1953 and that have been pursued up to now. And on the other hand, your major alternative is the PNC, APNU, AFC, whatever name you want to call them. They have been an abject failure whenever they are in power. And most importantly, when they are in power, the freedom and rights of the Guyanese people are threatened. Constitutionality is threatened. Democracy is threatened. Our judiciary is threatened. Rule of law is threatened. And when those things are threatened, then civilization and civil society itself are threatened. And those are people who should never be close to governmental power. Never. Look at the battle that we have had over the past 2 or 3 months just to protect the rights of the Guyanese to be able to vote freely and in a hassle-free environment. Look at that, what we had to go through over the last 3 days in getting polling stations made available to Guyanese, especially in PPP areas. This kind of struggle we should not have to go through. Our people should not have to endure this. Stan, while we are struggling to get democracy to work here, getting government to obey the constitution, the people in China are finding new medicine for their children.
And they have coronavirus.
In China, in India, are developing new technology for computer. In Taiwan, they are building new computers, building new televisions. And here we are fighting to get government to obey court orders and this kind of foolishness. We are being kept back as a people by our government. I have not even said a word about the oil deal, but I can come back to you and we talk about the oil deal alone.
And I'm
alone.
And I'm hoping,
and that alone should be the basis to reject them forever and ever.
fair enough. I'm hoping that the final conversation, I've asked the opposition leader, and I've asked many of the other leaders of your party who've been here for the presidential candidate to be able to face the nation on the hot seat. And I'm hoping that he can come on Friday. For the final hot seat before the nation decides. So can I get a commitment from you to be able to egg him on to come out, to be able to get him to come?
No. What I can promise to convey your invitation to him. I can promise to do that.
Thank you very much.
You're most welcome.
And thanks for being on the program today.
Thank you very much, and permit me to thank your viewers and your listeners for accommodating me in their homes and wherever they have listened to me. I am sorry, Stan, if I raise my voice. I'm sorry, listeners
I think the AC was too
if
I
I raise my voice. The place here is very hot.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's why perhaps Stan calls it a hot seat. It's really physically hot here. Thank you very much, Stan.
You're welcome. All right, and that, of course, has been none other than Mr. Anil